Okay. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Today is January 30th, 2019, and it is 5:30. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Central Health Board of Managers. The first item of the business is citizen communication. Anissa?
Hi, good evening. My name is Anais Cruz, Communications and Community Engagement Coordinator here at Central Health. Today we have two people signed up to speak during citizens communication. Both are familiar with our process and guidelines. So first up, I'll invite Megan Cermak with Central Health.
Good evening. It's my understanding that the board is adopting a resolution honoring Dr. Wong tonight. And on behalf of the Central Health Equity Policy Council, which Dr. Wong is a member of, and we have a couple members in the audience, we would also like to say a couple words to acknowledge his good work. I reached out to Christy Garvey, who was the founder of the council, and I think she summarizes it nicely and captures all of our feelings. Dr. Phil Wong has long been a health champion for the residents of Austin-Travis County. His focus on tobacco policy and the scientific population health approaches he has led leaves a legacy of reduced tobacco use and all of the health benefits and money saved because of these policy challenges. Dr. Wong is tireless in his enthusiasm for improving the health of those most in need in our community. His leadership and passion will be missed, and Dallas County has a great deal to look forward to with him at the helm. Thank you for all of you have given to this community, Dr. Wong, and it's been an honor working with you. Thank you.
Last but not least, I will welcome Dr. Charles Bell at the Central Health Board of Managers.
Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, I'll just speak from my seat. I would like to read you a resolution from the Sendero Board of Directors. A resolution expressing appreciation to Central Health for its service and support of the Central Health Access Program expansion. Whereas the Board of Directors of Central Health Plans Incorporated recognizes that Central Health Premium Assistance Expansion Program, CHAP expansion, is a critical component of Sendero's value to the community and business plan for 2019. Whereas the Sendero Board of Directors recognizes that CHAP expansion programs require extraordinary initiatives and efforts by Central Health management and staff to identify and communicate with potential members to coordinate the transfer of interested members to Sendero representatives. Whereas the Sendero Board of Directors recognizes that detailed planning, implementation, and continued communication between Central Health and Sendero staff were required to effectuate the CHAP expansion program. Whereas the CHAP expansion program has resulted in the successful transition of over 200 qualifying Travis County residents from Central Health's Medical Access Program, MAP, to fully insured Sendero Ideal Care health care plans. And whereas the Sendero Board of Directors wishes to recognize and commend the management and staff of Central Health for facilitating the successful transition of those Travis County residents to Sendero Ideal Care healthcare plans, now therefore be it resolved that the Sendero Board of Directors recognizes and commends those Central Health employees under the leadership of the President and CEO Mike Giesland, whose efforts allowed for successful expansion of CHAP to over 200 former MAP members, and be it further resolved that this resolution of appreciation and be duly entered permanently into the minutes of the Sendero Board of Directors, signed on this 22nd day of January 2019. Charles E. Bell, thank you very much. We really, really appreciate all of the work that you guys did to make that a reality. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
That concludes citizens communication for today.
Seeing no other citizens' comments, let's proceed with the meeting. First of all, in front of you, you'll find a book called Boards That Make a Difference by John Carver. Years ago, when Cucino took over as chair, the Central Health Board sent us these books, and I read it the first time. Then I brought it back out and started rereading it again. It's really clear how boards really should work. So we're giving y'all each a copy as well. Did everyone get one? Good. It's really, it starts off slow, but it's a good read when you have time. All right, agenda items 5, 7. What's that?
I'm just wondering, is this a gift?
It's a gift. It's a gift. It's for you.
Does it fall within the guidelines of?
Yes.
It is. All right, agenda items 5, 7, 10, and 11 will not be discussed tonight. Those items are 5, receive and discuss a report of the December 2018 financial statements for the Community Care Collaborative. 7, receive reports from the following board committees: Strategic and Planning Committee and Budget and Finance Committee. 10, discuss and take appropriate action on the 1115 Medicaid waiver, Delivery System Reform Incentive Payment, DSRIP projects, the Community Care Collaborative, including healthcare delivery arrangements, and other interrelated community partnerships. And 11, discuss and take appropriate action on the Central Health owned and occupied real property, including the downtown campus and properties located in eastern Travis County. All right. The next agenda item will be consent agenda item. I personally would like to remove the, sorry, which one was it, Nicole?
C6.
C6. I'd like to pull C6 off consent. Do I hear a motion for the rest to be approved?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Any abstentions? All right, motion passes.
And Dr. Zamora, will you please, for the record, read what those C1 through C5 items are?
Oh, I'm so sorry. C1 is approve the minutes of the following meetings for Central Health Board of Managers. A, November 28th, 2018. C2, receive and ratify Central Health investments for December 2018. C3, approve fund change recommendations from Branch Banking and Trust Company for the Travis County Healthcare District Retirement Plan and the 457 Deferred Compensation Plan as recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee. C4, receive a report of the December 2018 financial statements for Central Health as presented to the Budget and Finance Committee. C5, accept a charitable contribution of $25,000 from the estate of Gary Lee Childs for the Central Health Premium Assistance Program as recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee. Thank you. Okay, C6, approve the Central Health Board of Managers Committee assignments for 2019. The reason I pulled this off the agenda is I'm going to go ahead and pull myself off the downtown campus and appoint Julia Oliver as well as one of your board members. Any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we adopt
The amendment?
the amendment for consent item number 6, approval of the Board of Managers Committee assignments for 2019.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. All right, the regular agenda. Item 1, discuss and take appropriate action on the resolution honoring Dr. Philip Long for his service as Medical Director and Health Authority for Austin Public Health. Manager Musaitis, would you like to read the motion?
Yes, thank you. Well, we're delighted to honor you, Dr. Long, for all your work that you have done for our community. So if I may read this resolution. Philip Long, and for his service to Austin Public Health. Whereas Dr. Philip Long has served as the Medical Director and Health Authority for Austin Public Health since April 2008. And whereas as a valued member of the Central Health Equity Policy Council, Dr. Long provided research and data resources which led to the passage of the Central Health Equity Policy Electronic Cigarette Ordinance. This success would not have been possible without him. And whereas Dr. Long worked hand in hand with Central Health during the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, helping to orchestrate our community's strong medical disaster response. And whereas after the city of Austin signed the Paris Declaration to end the AIDS epidemic, Dr. Wong launched the Fast Track Cities initiative to drive progress, promote accountability, and unite diverse stakeholders in pushing towards common goals. And whereas Dr. Wong was awarded the W. Neil Kosirik Award for Public Health Advocacy in 2017 for his local advocacy efforts, and whereas not only is Dr. Wong recognized as a local and state expert, but he serves on committees at a national level for the FDA, CDC, and American Academy of Family Physicians. And whereas Dr. Wong plays the trumpet and serves on the advisory board for the Central Texas Medical Orchestra, which raises funds in support of local health-related nonprofits. And whereas Dr. Wong has shown extraordinary dedication to improving the health of the public through his work with the Austin Public Health, and be it resolved by Central Health that the board expresses its sincere appreciation and gratitude to Dr. Wong for his dedicated service to the city of Austin and his contribution to the work of Central Health, and be it further resolved that the secretary of the board prepare a copy of this resolution for presentation to Dr. Wong. Thank you.
Phil, do you want to give us a few words?
Just truly am honored and
Can you come to the table?
And I hate to interrupt you before you get started, but can we get a motion on the floor before
Oh,
we start
yes,
discussing?
sorry.
Thank you.
I'd like to move that we adopt the resolution honoring Dr. Wong for all his work.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Philip, thank you.
Thank you, and again, it's a true honor, and I'm totally humbled for this recognition. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you, and you know, I mean, there's been a lot we've accomplished, a lot more to do. I'm hoping to continue collaborations with my new role up in Dallas. You know, it's just up I-35, not too far, and I think that there, as I look at some of the things that to work on up there, I think that there's still much more to partner with, and I, again, look forward to continuing to work with you. But thank you very much.
The motion passes.
Chair, if I may?
Sure,
Is it possible if we take a quick picture with him?
of course. Everyone? At ease? Stand at ease? So, can we take a picture? We can do it right here in front of the-
just
really Yep.
quick.
Do you want it now?
Oh, it's signed.
It's signed.
Yeah, you can give it to him.
I'll give it to him? I'll give it to him.
Yep.
Thank you for congratulations on the promotion. Our last speaker today, yeah.
Are we centered?
How do you want us to? Squeeze together.
And I use as a director, she knows.
she's actually
I have you on this side.
Not like me, who just plays on.
Yeah. Perfect.
Do you want us, you know?
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. There it is.
All right.
Thank you.
Hold on. Hold on. You're right. It will. It should be. I know that, Nicole pulled it out. Ready? Agenda item 2, receive and discuss a briefing regarding Birch et al. Versus Travis County Health Care District, Dean Bidley, Central Health, and Mike Giza. Cause number D1GN 17-005-824, in the 345th Civil District, Board of Travis County. and Beverly Weaves will be presenting. I announce the board is convening an executive session to discuss agenda item 2 under section 551.071 of the Texas Government's Code, consultation with attorney.
And then your balance, yes. And then the balance sheet.
All right, it is 6:43. We're coming out of executive session. We discussed agenda item 2, receive and discuss a briefing regarding Birch et al. Versus Travis County Healthcare District doing business as Central Health and Mike Giesman, cause number D1GN 17005824 in the 345th Civil District Court of Travis County. There is no action item at this time.
Just announce the time for us one more time.
Well, sure, it is 6:44. All right, agenda item 3, receive and discuss and take appropriate action on the presentation of Central Health Fiscal Year 2018 financial audit. Lisa?
Good evening, Lisa Owens, Vice President of Financial Operations. I'm just here this evening to introduce Maxwell Ockenritter, who is going to present our financial audit to you. Jimmy Rommel is the audit partner, and he's going to give a brief presentation. Thank you, Jimmy.
So good evening. If you recall, we met a week ago and went through this in a lot more detail. So tonight I'm just going to kind of touch on some of the main points again. And just to let you know, the difference between this report versus the one we presented last week, really there's no significant changes other than the CCC's numbers have been now finalized. That audit was completed yesterday was the actual opinion date on that. So we'll kind of go through the report, kind of touch on some of the high points. If you have questions for me, just let me know. So we are going to be issuing an unmodified or clean opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide as your external auditor. And also our audit is done under government auditing standards, and we had no reportable instances of non-compliance as part of our audit this year. Here's your statement of net position. Just kind of give us a real high-level view of what the balances were at the end of fiscal year 18. Focusing on the bottom number there, your total net position at the end of your fiscal year 18 was about $288 million. Here's your changes in revenues and expenses for the year. You see operating revenues went down due to the lease revenue, to the change in that lease agreement. But overall, you had an increase in your net position of about just under $35 million for your fiscal year 18. And just some additional highlights. So we do an audit under the Public Funds Investment Act. There are no instances of non-compliance related to that. And also all your bank accounts were fully collateralized by FDIC insurance at the end of your fiscal year. And as part of our audit, we do review the internal controls over Central Health's processes, and we kind of go through and make sure if there's anything that we need to communicate to the board, and we noted no material weaknesses in internal controls for your fiscal year 18 audit. And with that, I'll open up to any questions you may have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Any questions, board?
No, I think,
Sherry?
I know we had a substantial discussion of this in Budget and Finance, and so I thank you for coming in. From what I'm hearing is there are no changes from what we heard in Budget Finance that would cause any further discussion.
Right, the only
Okay,
thing that
thank
said a
you.
change was just the CCC numbers getting
Understood.
finalized.
Thank you.
They changed just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
No other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Bless you.
Bless you. Bless you.
Mr. Chairman? Dr. Bell?
I move that the board accept the Central Health fiscal year 2018 audit as presented by Maxwell Locke and Ritter.
Second.
Do I hear a motion to do, sorry. We have a motion on the floor from Dr. Bell, seconded by Board Member Musaitif. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say no. All right. Any abstaining? Okay, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Jimmy, thank you for coming. Agenda item 4, discuss and take appropriate action on the amendments to Travis County Healthcare District Compliance Policies and Procedures. Patty? Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Board. Patty Miller, Central Health Compliance. So tonight I don't have a presentation. The policies have been provided to you in the packet, and they were sent about a week ago as well electronically. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at them. My plan for this evening is to briefly discuss each policy and then pause for comments, so we don't go through all of them and we get slightly confused, because there are quite a bit of policies. As a reminder, these were brought to the November meeting, and so some of them were discussed at that time. There are additional policies included tonight, and I'll highlight that when we get to one that was not discussed. So the first policy is policy CMP 001, the compliance program description. And as a reminder, this is just a high-level policy describing the compliance program here at Central Health. This was adopted by the board in May of 2010. Pretty much as is, as we discussed at November meeting, we're under initiative to overhaul all of our policies and procedures to create some consistency, both in format and writing style. So that was the main change, was to change the format of this, but also to include reference to the compliance work plan, which will be a tool that the board can use in the future to help measure the effectiveness of the compliance program, which is a requirement of the board per the bylaws. It also outlines, just to call out some key deliverables, that compliance training will occur for all new employees within 90 days of their start date, and then annually thereafter. So any comments on the compliance program description? Okay. So the second policy is CMP 002. So this is the Code of Conduct and Ethics for Employees. So this is separate from the Code of Conduct that you as the board acknowledge. And so this is for all of our employees. The only change to this besides format was we have created an annual attestation that we will now begin having employees sign. So working with HR to implement that, hopefully electronically. But that is just as an extra control to put into place. You guys acknowledge your policy on an annual basis, so we thought it was a best practice to have our staff begin doing the same. Any questions? Okay. Cynthia?
This was on the CMP-002?
Correct.
Just for future reference, will there be any opportunity, or will there be an inclusion for, or will there be a question in there, some kind of a statement whenever you have new hires for employees, that they disclose whatever boards that they sit on? To know whether there is a potential conflict with us and who we fund, who we do business with, our providers?
So that might be something that we do under the conflict of interest policy, so that's a separate attestation. This is a general, I've read the code of conduct, I understand that I'm being held to it, and that if I were to violate it, I've read it and understand it.
Okay.
So that would be.
Under
more-
009?
Yeah.
Okay.
So several policies have been put forward for retirement for you guys, so I've not printed those for you today, but those were provided previously. So that's why we jumped to CMP 006, our reporting and non-retaliation policy. Once again, no substantial changes. We have included some definitions of wrongdoing and retaliation. So if you've reviewed either of those and have comments, I'll take those. And we've also updated our helpline information. We were prior using an in-house call. We've now procured an outside vendor to handle our anonymous helpline.
Rob?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. I'm not sure where. Do we have a policy in place for sexual harassments?
We do, that's an HR policy.
It's HR, not, okay. Has it been updated recently?
So
It was brought to the board February of 2018.
And we're going to reserve any discussion of human resources policies for another time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. CMP 008 is our compliance investigations policy. So given the existence of a compliance officer, this policy has always existed, but some of the language has been tweaked a bit to make it clear that the compliance officer will lead compliance investigations and will consult with HR and legal counsel and a departmental lead as necessary. There was some strong reliance on legal counsel prior to do our compliance investigations, but with the creation of a compliance department and dedicated staff, it'll be on the compliance officer to then seek legal counsel's involvement. Do you have any comments or concerns? So moving on to CMP 009, this is the duality and conflict of interest policy. This policy is not new, it's been previously approved, but there will be significant changes in look from last time you saw this about a year ago. So some decisions were made to remove a lot of the language you previously approved and move to an SOP, a standard operating procedure. And that is simply because the language was very procedural in nature, down to the date and time that certain forms needed submitted. And so for the sake of clarity, because these policies are board policies as well as employees, we wanted to have a policy that people could quick reference what is a conflict, what is a duality, and help give them some general guidelines. If they then feel that there's potential, they can reference the SOP and get into the weeds about how they seek opinion, how they submit conflict of interest forms, and all of that. So it was to break up, it was about a 9-page policy at one point. So that was simply the change. So going through this duality and conflict of interest policy, the definitions are the same as you approved the last time this policy was included. The addition has been a summarization of many policies, compliance, HR, to outline some potential areas for conflict or duality for individuals, such as gifts, personal financial interests, outside employment, charitable organizations and events, and family, friend, and personal workplace relationships. And the intent is to make clear that the existence of these things is not bad, but that it could potentially hinder your ability to be unbiased in decision-making. And so we wanted to outline what those are and how they could potentially impact so that people felt they had more guidance. Questions?
I know for a few years in a row, I have suggested implementation of language that would, I want to call it an old-time revolving door policy. But what I'm referring to specifically is if we have staff that leaves, or even board members that leave, and they come back and they could be in a position where they would benefit from a contract or whatever, I don't believe that we have anything that addresses any cooling off period or period of time, a length of time that should be implemented so that there is no such perceived conflict with respect to relationships. This is a small world in our world, in this arena, and I think that it's important that we acknowledge the fact that because of that, we want to make sure that there is no perceived conflict or no perceived bias in entering into contracts or not entering into contracts with people. And so I think, I don't know whether the board is willing to entertain that, but I was wondering whether or not it's possible to look at this and including such language that would talk about revolving door or cooling off period, or we're not going to do business with you within a year period of time or whatever, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it may be.
Patty, or?
So I believe that is something that the board could choose to implement as a policy, that Central Health will not, just so I understand, like an employee were to resign, would not seek a contract as a vendor or a consultant immediately thereafter leaving, correct? So,
Right. Same thing with the board member.
So if that is something the board would like to pursue, I lean towards thinking that might be a procurement policy, just so we would put the controls there, or an HR even of hiring. But it is not currently in the policy as presented.
I like that idea, but I could see a potential area where it might be problematic if somebody did leave their employment and somebody came into a new role and they needed to hire somebody kind of on a temporary contract basis to help train up, sort of, like when you just come in back as a temp, that would prohibit them from doing that, but if there's a way, yeah.
I guess from the training perspective, I
Yeah.
can see that, but not necessarily from contract.
Question tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree that there needs to be some place, I don't know if it's, you might be right, procurement section might be the place it needs to be. But my question is this for the entire enterprise? Are these governing the entire enterprise?
So CUC has their own compliance policies and Sendero has their own compliance policies. These are Central Health focused, and the CCC typically adopts them, but that is the scope at this time.
Okay, so by adopting these, they would not apply to Sendero or
CCC?
I have a question too.
Sure.
I'm very familiar with those kinds of policies and have been very supportive in the past in other realms. One issue that I would bring up is that you would need, I believe, to look at the level of staff, right? That might be something, and clearly we're not going to go, into this tonight, but there's staff who are decision-making and leave and come back, and then there's staff who are not and may be very low paid, and so to limit their future earning potential, that sometimes can be an issue, depending on their level of decision-making they had and their level of pay. And so frequently what you see is you don't put a broad brush for all employees and all staff. You make some differentiation according to where they are in the organization.
Excuse me.
Then what I'd like to know is whether or not,
Hold on to the mic.
Could you restate your question again? Measure Valdez, could you restate your question?
my question is whether or not this board would support expanding, looking
So your
at
question's for the board.
the question, is for the board to see, because apparently, according to what Patty is saying, she is probably correct in that this could be a procurement issue or HR issue, and so that language would be better put in those policy manuals. But I'd like to know whether or not the board would be willing to entertain that so that we could look at this within this year, implementing such a policy
So can I ask a question?
or language.
So Holly, would this be something that could come back before the board for discussion in its own right?
Yes.
And I would certainly be supportive of that. Okay.
Can we assume that this is consensus?
What is
Well, it depends on.
I don't know that we can do that, but
Yes, we can't take a vote on something that we're not.
we can't take a
No,
vote
I
on something that's not on,
understand, but
but
just because it's consensus and
I think you've heard
I think
people
we all
talk.
understood it. Thank you.
I think
It sounds like, yeah, Mr. Chairman, it sounds like there's a future discussion around
Right.
revolving
Thank
door
you.
policy.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's a separate
Yes.
policy.
Yes, that would come
Separate
before the
apart
board.
from this that would govern this. And at
Yes.
that time, the reason I was asking you to repeat your question, because it was a question for the board, I need to think through this,
Yes, sir.
but I actually.
It's not for me to
I
action.
actually have a revolving door policy on me from my work at TDI, and I think they're quite workable.
Yeah,
And
as I said, I,
Thank you.
this is what sends a strong signal, but there are some workforce considerations.
that's what I was bringing up. I support it, but we do need to look at the
Is it
level of the
okay for me to
organization.
direct executive management team to bring this up later?
So what would typically happen is you'll say, I hear your concerns and I'll put this on a future
Right.
agenda and then we move on.
That's right.
I hear your concerns, and I'll put this in.
That's what I was trying to say. It could come back before us.
Chair, someone else.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
Well,
Call.
Thank you,
All
Holly.
right, moving right along.
Any other questions pertaining to the duality and conflict of
No.
interest policy as presented? Okay. So the next document is actually on our SOP template, which is new. So this is the duality and conflict of interest procedure. So this is the language as you approved prior. It's just been moved to our procedure document. We've also included the creation of an employee attestation. So Manager Valdez, this might get to your point earlier. This is a disclosure statement that is used elsewhere within our organization. It's actually used by CUC for their employees, so we've adopted it, that we would begin requiring this from our staff as well. And that is not a change from the procedure. There was a statement in here that said employees would have to disclose. To ease it, actually, the process, we've created a form. Questions, comments?
Thank you. What?
Just would such a form exist for us?
So you utilize
Is that a
form.
future section?
No, it is attached. I didn't provide a physical copy because you've seen it before where this one was brand new. But it's the form CIS. Is that the correct? Okay. There's so many acronyms. It's the Texas Ethics Commission form that you guys complete.
Right.
Are we at any point going to include here, because there's apparently there's a difference in requirements from the appointing agencies. So the county has its own requirements and the city has its own requirements or zero requirements. And I was just curious as to whether or not we could go ahead and make some kind of a notation in our policy so that we could be kept aware, just in case it's time to file and, or because we were appointed by this body, we don't have to file anything.
So we do require a copy of the CIS form on file for each board member. And so if you are appointed through the county, we receive that. If you
Right.
are appointed through the city, we then come to you and ask you to complete that
Okay.
during your appointment.
Thank you.
So regardless, there's one on file for
Right,
each.
thank you.
The next policy we're going to discuss is CMP 0010, the Code of Conduct and Ethics for Board Members. Sorry. No significant changes except for under the record retention section, we expanded the types of records that you would need to retain to include text messaging. And this is just to keep the policy current with modern modes of communication. We know that text messages are frequent. And so we wanted to make sure it was called out for you that you know that those are applicable to our record retention schedule.
And how long is it?
So the record retention schedule is unfortunately very complicated in that it's based on content. Not the text message itself doesn't equal a certain number of years. So you would have to be familiar with the record retention schedule, which we could discuss at another time.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm clear on text, you mentioned text messages and other communication. I can understand emails and other text messages, I guess the question. To what degree do they relate to board members under this policy?
The text messages that you send while doing business on the behalf of Central Health, so communications with other board members or with Mike about agenda items or whatever it may be, would be considered business records for Central Health, and therefore they have to be retained for a certain period of time. And they are also then discoverable under the Public Information Act.
Just like email.
Correct.
Correct.
Right, it doesn't change it because it's a
Right.
text message.
Well, I guess the question is the method by which financial responsibility is held for text versus email type of thing. Is there an expectation that because I'm emailing or communicating with someone on the board, with my instrument that I purchase and I have responsibility for, that then the district has responsibility for that?
So you would have personal responsibility since it's on your device to retain that. But if a public information request, even if you sent it from a personal email, but it was on the course of business with a board member or Mike, would still be discoverable and need to be retained for the correct amount of time.
So I'm supposed to be keeping my text messages from, not that I text you all that often, but I mean, the question is that.
I'm waiting to get something from you.
That's a question I need some guidance on, because that has not been my understanding of an expectation. I did when I was in my previous employer where I was being remunerated for the use of the equipment. Here I'm not. And so I'm wondering, I probably need some clarity on how we're going to interpret that question.
So if it is a text message that is about business with Central Health employee, you do need to be retaining that. Only if it meets the definition of a business record, which is defined by the record management schedule.
What if I text my board, may I call you later?
Yeah.
That's really non-specific.
Let's talk about this a later on.
So I definitely think we can have a broader discussion, perhaps just an educational session about records retention. But as Patty mentioned before, it's the content of the message that matters to the length of retaining something. So what you're discussing is something of administrative value. When it's no longer administratively valuable, there's a retention scheme for that, which is a lot shorter than other things.
Yeah, we do need to have this, because I have no mechanism currently to accumulate this. And so if that is the expectation, I'll need to set up something to do that.
I agree as well with Mr. Jones. Like, for instance, these are our personal devices. We pay for it, and to also save it, that's an additional cost, additional barrier as well.
Data storage.
You know, storage, and I don't see it, and we constantly, in this world, and we probably text more than we talk over the phone or email. So there's a lot of data in here, so
Members, you're raising some really good points.
I
think
just
this
can't
is a
retain.
technical, logistical
Right.
issue that really goes outside you know, our expertise here, just between Patty and myself, for example, maybe speak for yourself, but I think, if we may, if you have a situation which I think you could talk offline with council and Patty, I know they'd be happy to visit with you about this, and want to help you and assist you in this effort. But also, we can tee this up at the upcoming retreat that we have scheduled for April. And that's part of some other compliance issues that we're going to be bringing to you anyway.
And I would think that this really might be something that we would consider in light of the fact that we should not be communicating to a quorum, a walking quorum. So that's, I would assume that this is the intent of this type of language, correct?
That's an element of it, but the record retention schedule
All right.
also just is deeming, the format of a document is not what makes it a record, it's the content.
Correct, with respect to agenda items.
To Holly's point, most of your text messages are probably administratively valuable. They're of quick connecting type comments. In the event that a text message contained information that therefore made it a business record that needed retained longer, I want this added to an agenda, more decision-making type things. Those would need retained for a longer period of time. But to Mike's point, we do have an extensive compliance training, extensive in a fun way, planned for April. We'll try to make it light. And I can bring record management to that training and we can dig deeper in that, or you're welcome to reach out to me individually and I can help you better understand our record retention schedule and methods for retaining text messages.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So the last and final standard operating procedure this evening is CMP 0011P. This was presented in November as well. This is the new procedure. And so this is to set up some consistency for all the policies and procedures at Central Health, including format as well as template that they will all be placed on, but also assigning policy owners. So each policy will have a business individual who owns that policy, and it is their responsibility to ensure it gets reviewed on a biannual basis to make sure it's relevant and current with business operations, as well as assigning executive ownership. So there's levels of oversight as a policy gets edited. We also have set in the time frame that moving forward, policies and procedures will be looked at least biannually to ensure they're accurate. Policies will then be stored in a consistent location so all employees know where policies and procedures live. It also assigns that policies will always require Board of Manager review, given they are higher level policy statements about how we choose to do operations here. SOPs, given their nature of business operations, can change very quickly given where you save documents to how you save a document, that type of thing. We're allowing executive leadership to sign off on those. We would certainly discuss ways to make you aware of them, but for the sake of moving business quickly, we've made that decision in this SOP, pending your approval. And that is the final policy, if anyone has comments.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve the amendments presented on November 28, 2018 and January 30th, 2019 to the Travis County Healthcare District compliance policies and procedures.
I hear a
Second.
That's a motion on the floor by Manager Bell, seconded by Manager Valdez. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Jim.
I will probably support this, but I still think that we need to be able to address some of the administrative processes in place. And if they become onerous or challenging, I would have problems then to come back and say, we have policies that the administrative processes are onerous on staff members or on board members. And so I just want to note that in my agreeing to vote for it, because most of this, for the most part, agree with, but I do want to note that for the record.
Well, I heard everyone's concern, and I'll bring it back on agenda item at the retreat in April. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, agenda item 6, discuss and take appropriate action on update regarding Sendero Health Plans, Inc., including the effects of federal legislative and regulatory actions. Wes?
It's right here.
The discussion,
Is this an open session?
well, the discussion will begin in open session,
And then we'll move to executive.
and then we'll move to executive session.
Happy New Year.
Aye?
Happy New Year. Thanks for letting me come and just make a few quick updates, a few discussion points. So I'll start with tagging along the part that we might have missed earlier, which was the Sendero Board resolution, Central Health staff. And I just needed to add that on behalf of the Sendero staff, we strongly support that resolution, which thanks Central Health staff, some of the people who are here, for a very successful, quick program, open enrollment program. We're very happy about that. Thank you. A lot of nights and weekend and hard work. And along the same lines, for this year, I'd like to thank the Central Health staff for their support to allow us to go forward. Just because of that, we've had a successful open enrollment. We're very happy with our market share and the membership, which seems to be right in line with the strategy to more directly support Central Health's work in the community. I can say staff is excited to be working directly with the MAP members. And I think those are the main things I wanted to say. Other than that, I guess I can lead into, we appreciate the board's and Central Health's understanding, our request to offer more information in closed session.
All right, if you're ready.
Right,
you can
all right.
announce.
All right, I announce that the board is convening an executive session to discuss agenda item 6 under section 551.085 of the Texas Government Code, governing board of certain providers of health care services. And it is 7:15. 7:40, we took on agenda item 6 under executive session, discuss take appropriate action on the update regarding Sendero Health Plans, Inc., including the effect of federal legislative and regulatory actions. This was discussion item, no agenda item, no action was taken. Is there any other questions for Wes? It's 7:40.
Yes, I was wondering if there was, if there's further information that can be provided with respect to the Commissioners Court meeting and Sendero and Central Health, or the Budget and Finance Committee.
So this is actually at the request of the full court to provide an update on, post-enrollment, what was happening with Sendero. Originally, this is a meeting that they would have liked to have had in January, but because of the dates when when premium is due, and we had good numbers, they agreed to move that to February. But I anticipate myself and Wes will be part of that. We'll send something out to the board so we get proper posting as we get closer to that time and confirm it.
Is this a private meeting, or is this a
It's a
public?
Commissioners Court.
It's a Commissioners Court meeting, so that we can attend.
Yeah.
It's the 26th, they received calendar invites to hold.
Okay, it's I'm advised by staff it's the 26th, and you have received calendar invites to hold.
Well, I haven't.
Yes.
We're going to work on that, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have an anticipated time?
No, we won't get a time till probably the day before.
We don't have that.
We don't have it on our calendar.
Okay, I can refresh.
I do not have it.
Yeah, I'll find one.
I have the 26th, is that what you said?
And
No,
then
it's
the
not on my
significance of that, members, is that it occurs after the Budget and Finance Committee hearing, where you'll basically, you're going to get the information that's going to be presented at the court the following week. But because the court meets on a Tuesday,
Right.
we couldn't stage it after the board meeting, so we're having to do it after Budget and Finance.
Yeah, I have the Budget and Finance Committee meetings and the board meetings, but I do not have that meeting on the 26th.
Yeah, me either.
It's forthcoming.
And I just want to thank you all, Sendero, for being there for our community and for doing as great a job as you possibly could, considering the circumstances, to make sure that we sought as many prospective CHAP members and got them on the rolls so that they could have a comprehensive continuum of care. That's the most important thing, because that's much better than being tied into a disjointed system of care that is offered through MAP, however good it may be, with respect to the fact that these are also high risk patients. That makes it, to me, doubly good, because they and their families are afforded some kind of a...
Thank you, Manager Aldous. We need to move on.
Thank you very much.
We're going to lose some members. All right, agenda item 8, discuss take appropriate action on the 2019 evaluation tool for the Central Health President and CEO. Ms. Willers, welcome back. Thank you for coming.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Susan Latta Willers, Enterprise Vice President for Central Health. And in front of you, I left a packet. It's clipped. And before I walk you through the packets, I wanted just to remind you that the last performance evaluation for the CEO was for a period of May 17th through May of 2018. The practice has been to evaluate the CEO 12 months after the evaluation tool has been approved. If we use that same practice today, or next month when you all take action on this tool, the CEO will not be evaluated until February of 2020.
Can I?
Let Ms. Willers finish first.
Well, but this is important to that point.
All right.
It's not to the evaluation tool, but specifically to that point.
Okay.
Go ahead,
So,
Roger.
I'm not comfortable, neither for us nor for our CEO, for him to go almost 2 years.
Yeah,
Because if my math is right, then that's what we would
Yeah, after I was
see.
Ms. Willers' talk, I was going to bring that back up. It's going to be at the discretion of the board to be able to bring it back anytime, not just a year. We can do this quarterly. We can do it before budget and finance.
But not with the evaluation tool.
Well, what I was going to recommend is that at your February meeting, you all decide to do informal check-ins quarterly if you'd like. You could also decide to evaluate the CEO formally before the 12-month period. So you could do a 6-month formal evaluation. You could actually do a 4-month evaluation, which by the time you approve the tool, it'll be in May, which will be 12 months from the last evaluation. So, you know, it was just a practice that we had.
May I
Yes.
respond to
Yes.
Andrew? So, if I were in your shoes, you can bring your CEO and talk to her or him anytime
Right.
about their performance. And the question is, you know, there's certain professional parameters around leadership and management and communication and, you know, whatever. And that could be, Susan suggested, it could be quarterly or it could be a very rigorous annual occurrence. And it could happen next month. It could happen tomorrow if you wanted, well, or even post. You could make it happen as quickly as you wanted it to. I think with respect to the strategic plan, again, it's the board's prerogative. You can check in with me on the progress and milestones at any interval that you want to, but given that we have a 2-year plan cycle, then you're still going to keep coming back, even if you check in on the strategic plan milestones as a performance measure in March or April or May, you still got to come back on the strategic plan and say, okay, how did we do in retrospect, unless you change it.
I'm confused. So if I could ask for some clarification, because I'm confused at this moment. I completely agree with what you're saying, having a 2-year strategic plan cycle, and you need to get through that and evaluate according to that 2 years. But that is separate from an annual evaluation of management performance, leadership, whatever it is we're talking about. That I was saying that I think neither you nor the board would be comfortable with that only happening every 2 years. So I'm a little confused right now.
Well, because the last time you evaluated the CEO was May of 2018.
Correct.
And we haven't adopted the tool. We could do something informal this year, is what I'm recommending. If you want to do something, a formal performance evaluation, then you can do so. Obviously, the tool that I'm going to walk you through, the milestones that have been laid out probably can't be achieved in 4 months or 6 months, but...
So maybe I can divide the question, so to speak. I want to make sure that we get back on a schedule where once a year, which would be 12 months or approximately, because things happen, we do, for the sake of our CEO and for us, the evaluation, which professionally should be happening annually, okay? I don't know how we got so off track, but whatever. And so that's one thing, and that's the tool in front of us, okay? And this tool will cover everything from strategic plan measures to management and leadership and all of that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I understand that we're looking at 2 years on the strategic plan, but we're still going to have to do this annually, right?
Right.
So,
Maybe it'll help you if I walk you through the tool?
No, it really won't.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, but because I'm still a little confused. What I want to have is a tool that no matter what, we can use annually. So that if we're in the middle of a 2-year strategic plan cycle, I don't know what we do. Do we need to separate those measures from this? But I want to have something, and I want to have it in place where we don't get off this cycle, where we know within a month or so we're doing the annual review.
May I respond here? And I think, don't let me confuse the facts on the situation, but it's my understanding that following the last review, that a tool was going to be developed once the new strategic plan was adopted. And that, I think, was a July, August timeframe, and we did get off track.
Okay.
And I think what Willers is saying is that, and I'm up for anything, let me just say this, but I think she's doing what she was told to do tonight, which is come in and tell us what you conventionally or traditionally do, and that is, if you're gonna set goals for somebody, you set them prospectively, and then you come in
Understood.
and look at a certain time
I
period.
agree. I
Whether
just,
that's 4 months, 6 months, or a year, I'm game
Okay.
for anything. But, I mean, that's the basis of this conversation today.
I
Having
understand.
said that, it's always gonna be the prerogative of the board. If you want to change this and do something completely different, you can. My only advice to you would be, if you do if you want to have a goals-oriented review only, for example, let's just take goals. If you want to measure somebody based on goals that you set for them, then, look at what the time frame is that you want to measure those goals by. As long as I know that, it can be whenever.
This is just me speaking, but from my perspective, given my duty on this board and my duty to you as our CEO, what I would like to have is something, and clearly someone needs to know in advance what he or she is going to be evaluated. Something set out where every 12 months-ish, we can get a little off track, we do an evaluation of our CEO. Okay, annually within that parameter, and the CEO knows that that's coming, and we have set it out, and that we get back on that. And for this year, since I do not think it is wise to wait almost 2 years, that we would have to have some kind of, I guess, posted, and then we go in executive session because it's personnel matters, special session review or something in May or whenever we decide.
It'll be a year, Mr. Greenberg.
A year would be,
If you want to do what you've conventionally done,
Right.
it'll be a year from February, or whenever you adopt this, to take action at the February board meeting.
no, that's not, I understand that, but we're going to have to do something in the meantime, or we will have waited almost 2 years between your reviews.
That's why I'd like Ms. Willers to go ahead and proceed with the instruction of the tool and give us
Right?
an
Am I right?
opportunity to.
So the next evaluation would have been May of this year.
Correct.
Right.
Right, so it'll be in February, in 2020.
Yeah, so we would have waited almost 2 years from our last evaluation to the next one, which is not acceptable.
I see, but
You
I
see the
really,
map?
really would like for Ms.
Okay.
Willers to finish her discussion before we have any questions, so that we
Okay.
can be
Okay.
given directions as far as your recommendations as far as evaluation of Mr. Giesland this year. I think it's what the board is wanting to hear from Susan.
Okay.
And I
So-
thank you for your time.
Sure, so
No, I do too. I'm just
the tool in front of you, I've provided you with a process. So you'll find three different sections in your packet. And the review is broken into 3 dimensions: strategic leadership, board relationship, and professional development. On the professional development, that was based on the Board of Managers' feedback that you all provided the CEO last year. And so if you would open the packet that is folded, that is the strategic leadership. And the way that this was set up is we looked at the objectives under the strategic plan. And what you see above the blue line are the strategies that the CEO will be evaluated, during the next 12 months. The key milestones right in the middle are the things that he will have to meet during the next 12 months. The items below the blue line kind of complete the strategies under the objective. We don't want to remove them from the evaluation, but he will not be rated on those. Those are simply just so you all can see the progress of those strategies. And that is true for objective 2 and 3 as you flip the pages. That is set on a 5-point scale, and what is to be determined, hasn't been determined, is how you all will measure if he's exceeded the milestone or significantly exceeded. That has not been defined yet, okay? The third packet is the board relationship competency. And for those of you that have been on the board for a few years, this looks familiar. It's one that we've used year over year. And then if you turn the page, That's the professional development. These are the comments and feedback that you all provided the CEO last year. And so what he would do is provide you all with a written report on his status of these items that you all provided him last year or the previous year. So each of the dimensions would be weighted. You know, you all would prioritize, you know, where you're going to put more weight on. And this would be done again in a 12-month period. That is what the process currently states. Can be changed. And my recommendation is that you all, if you all do adopt this tool next month, that, you know, based on meeting with Mr. Giesland sooner, that you all can decide on evaluating him sooner. If you would like to use a different tool, certainly we can go back to the tool that we used last year, and I can bring that forward as well. So, but this is a strategic focused performance card, scorecard.
So I think the board, you've heard the board's concerns, and I think we still would like to have a way to evaluate Mr. Giesland this year so that the whole full board is comfortable with not having a 2-year lapse.
Sure.
And again, I'll take full responsibility on that one. As board chair, I should have done this in November or December to bring this tool to the board, but we just got busy.
But
so with that, I'm going to ask Vice Chair to speak.
I'm still, pardon me, confused. I see before me two documents. One is the new one with, and I understand, Mr. Giesland, with the strategic plan that we had to go through, and you certainly need to know it well in advance what, of course, how you're going to be evaluating that. But the other one is a tool we have used before, right?
Right.
Would we be using both of these tools?
Yes.
And you're suggesting, even though one of them is one we've used before, that we wait 12 months on both of these. Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm simply recommending a tool for the next 12 months, which would...
And that's both of these items?
Correct.
That are before us. The one is called the Board Relationship Competency, which we used last time with Mr. Giesland's review, and the other one is the new one with the strategic plan that was revised, right?
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I understood what we're talking about as far as, so it's two.
It's really one. I just couldn't make the information fit from the strategies onto a 8.5 by 11.
Right, so it's both of these.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So keep in mind what I asked. So,
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and ask the board for questions. Board Member Jones.
I thought your questions, Vice Chair Greenberg, earlier was you were having challenges with having to go another 2 years.
Correct.
And so
I
my
agree.
thinking is that it would have been advisable, since we're going to be at the year mark for this one,
Yes,
why not just
I
use
agree.
it again for another year?
That's right.
Give the
I agree.
the executive the opportunity to be familiar with what's the expectations with this one, and make this one the following year.
that is in fact exactly where I was going when I said this is one that we've used before. So to me, why would we have to wait another 12 months on this one since it's not new, and we could go ahead with this one and then wait the full 12 months? And that's exactly
Yes.
what I was thinking, but that's just my thought.
Sure. Cynthia.
I noticed that you have this down as an action item for tonight. So with respect to, I haven't seen what this motion says, but I'd like to know whether or not, Manager Jones, that you were offering that as a motion.
Don't
I
forget
was
motion.
offering it as an
Oh.
opportunity for us to move
Okay,
on.
okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry, on the agenda.
Is this discussion?
This
I
is
thought
just
it-
discussion.
It says here on
This is the discussion.
number
item.
8, are we in number 8?
Yeah, number 8, yeah, it says action.
It says
We
action
took off.
item
I don't have that.
on the
Yeah.
agenda.
Sorry. I just have discussion.
Well, 8 here, no
Take
action.
take appropriate action on the 2019 evaluation tool with Central Health President and CEO.
So if I may, The agenda item is broad enough for you to take action tonight if you would like to. I think management thought it would be best to present the tool to you tonight, get feedback,
Okay.
incorporate that, and then come back for action.
Okay.
But if you would like to, you are posted for that, and you could take action. You have no motion drafted for you, so we will do our best.
Thank you, Councilman.
Language.
Cynthia.
Manager Jones, are you going to offer that in the form of a motion, or shall I make one?
No, you feel free to make one.
Okay.
Wait, before we make the motion, let's make sure there's no other discussion.
So,
Manager
No, I-
Atkins, Manager Bezaitis, Manager Bell.
so
No, I agree with you.
So it sounds like what's before us is, again, dividing the question, so to speak. We go ahead with the one we did last year and stay on cycle and then wait. And in 12 months, we would do the new one plus this one again and get back on a cycle.
Manager Bezaitis.
So I agree with you, Sherry. So my proposal to the motion, if we can have this tool, this evaluation done in May, so it can be, so it's 12, it'll be a year.
Right.
And the following one to be also in May, so.
Yeah.
just,
Yeah,
uh,
and then we
So-
get
So
back
that's
on.
really my
Manager Alden.
recommendation.
Okay, so then my motion is that we accept, thank you, Susan, for your work.
Yes.
Greatly appreciated. That we accept the existing, previously used tool,
Board relationship competency.
yes, board relationship competency, as an evaluation tool for our CEO to be used for an evaluation in May
Of 2019.
of 2019. And we use this perspective, presented tool. We make comments on it. We maybe look at it for tweaking to be used at the following.
We come back, if we're going to
We'll
tweak,
come back
then we'll come
hopefully
back
in
to it
February.
in February.
Yes, February. Can come back to this and tweak it, final action on language, and use this for the future.
And this.
Yes,
Both of
both.
them.
For the future May 2020 evaluation of our CEO.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are we gonna also do the professional development, or is that not?
Yeah, no,
Yes,
the whole
it's-
thing,
it's-
because he's,
it's the whole
this is what we
thing.
used
It's
last
keep 'em
time.
So the board relationship
And,
competency.
professional
you're right,
development.
thank you, yes, it's stapled together, yes.
I guess I need a second.
Council,
Yeah,
hold on, Council.
just for my, and my staff's.
I have a new motion.
Simplification, if we could make it, I move that the board adopt and then name the two dimensions, the board relationship
Okay.
competency
And
and
professional.
the professional
I move,
development.
I move that the board adopt,
Wait, Cynthia has a motion already.
oh, okay,
Yes, and
You want
I,
to withdraw your motion and let Sherry do
or
it?
she can do it.
okay.
Simplified
Sherry,
one.
did you want to do this?
Do not care, just want to keep
Why don't
moving.
you go ahead and withdraw
Okay,
your motion?
okay. Well, then I move that we accept for the purposes of the May 2019 evaluation tool, our CEO, the board relationship competency and professional development tool. And that we,
Period.
and that, period, for right
Yeah,
now.
that's all we're doing right now, exactly. Second,
Okay. Any other further discussion? All in favor of that, say aye.
aye.
All against, say no. Any abstentions? Motion passes.
And then,
And then for the purposes of next,
Make your second motion.
well, my understanding is that we
That we
don't
will-
need another motion tonight, that we will come,
come
that
back on the
we have
agenda.
some time to look at this, and that the onus is on all of us, and Susan, thank you for all of your hard work. So the onus is on us, if we have any comments, to get back to Susan, because in February, this will come back, and we can have a motion to adopt this, plus this, for May of 2020.
Just a point of clarification, in Manager Valadez's motion, you just adopted the board relationship competency. You did not adopt the professional
Yes, she
development.
No, I
she
did,
said
I
both.
did
No, she
state.
added both.
She did
I
say
stated,
both.
I
heard
stated
it.
both.
Yeah,
Great.
Yes, she did.
she did.
Mhm.
I'm glad you had people listening.
I was
She did
listening.
the second
You were
motion.
probably writing.
Okay.
Thank you, board. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Susan.
No, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, Susan.
Appreciate it.
There's no action, well, there's an action, sorry. Mine said no action.
What else?
Agenda item 9, just receive and discuss a report from the President and CEO on Central Health operations and current activities, including A, the Central Health Board of Managers strategic work plan and operational priorities, B, an assessment of organizational work systems and processes, and C, other personal matters. Mr. Giesman.
Thank you, members, and I'll be brief for recognizing the hour, but there's a memo in your packet, and it is slightly different than what was sent out prior last week. Just there's some editorial changes in there, but really this is just a flavor of some of the milestones that the Central Health team and its enterprise partners have been able to accomplish. It's under, they're detailed in this memo, but the reality is there are a bunch of people that make this happen. And I can't even begin to list all the names. So I want to thank the staff, not only of Central Health, but of Sendero, of Community Care, Community Care Collaborative, the CCC. They, this is truly an enterprise that we're looking at here. I think, overall, what this reflects is what happened in the first quarter, the first 3 months of the new strategic plan cycle. I would say that we are doing really well in terms of our work capacity to be able to hit some of these milestones. There are a few, and you need to know this, and I think this is pertinent as you think about evaluating performance as well, but there are times that we sit down as a management team and we realize, all right, there is a milestone here that we're not going to be able to meet. Why is that? And we have a discussion around, is it a resource issue? Is it a bandwidth or a time issue? Do we have absences? You'd be surprised, and you would call this from the Germain Solutions report, having a lean operation. If you have 2 people out on family leave at the same time, that greatly affects your operating capacity. And so we don't just let the milestone pass without having a very substantive discussion around why is it that we're resetting this. But because it's a 2-year plan cycle, if we need to move something to a subsequent quarter, making that management decision to do that.
Sure.
And if it's going to be 2 quarters out, it's probably something that I would then come back to the board, to the strategic plan committee or this board meeting and say, you need to understand something. There's a critical milestone here. I'm pushing out 6 months, not just 3 months. But so we've got that internal threshold that I'm operating by. The other point that I'd like to make is it's not necessarily in what I would call strategy 1.1, which is our geography of healthcare strategies, we like to call it. But you'll recall that whenever we talked about the 4 priority focus areas in Travis County, I wanted to step back and hit the reset button on how it is we make decisions about service, especially around modality. Is it bricks and mortar? Is it technology? Is it home health? Is it transportation? And this is a convening that will happen under Mr. Wallace's responsibilities, given that he's got functional responsibility for that. A lot of us are going to be chipping in on that, but basically what we're doing is we're bringing in all of our partners and looking at it from the patient perspective to say, okay, with 100,000 patients, what's the best approach here? As best as we can figure that out. We're not going to be able to get down to detailed tactical plans, but really thinking smart and ahead 10 years, what do we need to be doing? And then backing that up, okay, translate that into what's the next fiscal year's worth of activity? What's the next fiscal year beyond that? And it's a very deliberate and well thought out process so that we can turn around to the public and say, this is what we expect to do. This is where clinics will be. This is the sorts of technologies we want to bring out here to serve people. This is the transportation, the home health initiatives.
Yeah.
And so that way people can see
That's great.
up front as opposed to having to wonder what's happening. So there's something to react to. So that's something that I think, and I appreciate the board giving us that forbearance and allowing us to work on that, but it was briefly touched on at the last board meeting, but I felt it important to reiterate it since we've been talking about strategic plan objectives. We're going to continue to update these either through 2 channels, the CEO's report, or through the strategy sheets and updates that we bring back to the board with our partners there to tell us how they're contributing to the success of these strategies, be it the med school or community care or the CCC staff or Sendero. So anyway, that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just want to say thank you, and I really appreciate the process that you are implementing. I think it will serve us very well. Thank you.
There's no questions.
Just one. With respect to the technology and data, on the implementation of the endpoint encryption device to support secure integration of data, do we have an idea as to when that will be put in place?
So this, on 2.4A, that's due, the short answer is it's ongoing, and let me explain why. I'll probably have a better date in about 30 days, because the reason that the joint technology team needed to push that milestone out is there was some more technological infrastructure that was needed to improve upon that, because if you introduce a data loss prevention tool, and you don't have the right technological infrastructure, the data loss prevention tool won't work right. So I'm summing it up at a layperson's level, but until you get your technology underpinning right, it's not a good use of resources to try to implement that tool.
No, I understand, but excuse me.
I just don't have a date for it.
I know, I was
wanted to provide the explanation.
just wanting to make sure that what we're talking about is under the auspices of the IDS, because I remember we've had at least 2 years conversations about the integrated delivery system.
Right.
And so that's what I'm referring to.
So on the technical side of the IDS, that's covered under the OCA agreements and the other data sharing agreements, and I'm probably missing some things there, but on the programmatic side of the integrated delivery system, that's the whole point behind the CCC
Yes.
at this point. It's just not really a technology issue related to 2.4A.
Protocol, healthcare, transformation.
Yes, ma'am.
issue. Okay, thank you.
You have a question over here?
Yeah, really quickly. I'm really pleased to see the 2 women's health milestones there under Q2, the contraception baselines and the African American Maternal Health Business Plan. Under 2.3A, you see there under Q2 milestones moved to Q3 and Q4.
Yes.
Can you remind me, is there a separate goal for postpartum services, or should that be postpartum? Because I think most of the issues we're seeing are really around the postpartum rather than prenatal phase. And there's no reason not to look at both, but I just wanted to make sure that it's in there somewhere. I know we're not doing strategic planning tonight, but just because it's not there, I wanted to
But
flag
it's
it.
an excellent question, because this does speak to specifically to prenatal, so I'll need to go back and look at that strategy.
Cool,
sheet.
thank you. Just
Off the
that
top
is
of my
on your
head.
radar.
We can
Both,
circle back.
I would support both.
I'd say both too, but I think
would
if
too.
only one is going to be prioritized quickly, it needs to be postpartum, because prenatal tends to be more accessible through emergency Medicaid
and
so on and so
Medicaid,
forth.
yeah,
Exactly.
Medicaid.
So,
But
but
one-
yes, both is what I would like to.
If I may address that again.
Yeah, please.
That's an excellent discussion to have as a teaching example, because this strategic plan, the way it's set up, what you adopted is the objectives and then the related strategies. The milestones, we're really treating that as a management activity, but this kind of exchange is important because it's the board's prerogative to come in and say, you know what, we'd like to see,
Move that forward.
well, or we'd like to see this milestone go
Right.
through. It could be we're doing it anyway.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
if it's something that it's like the legislative process, there are some things
Right.
they track, some things they don't. But if you want to pull it into the things that you all look at, when you look at the success of this strategy, you don't have to go through a board adoption process. That's a management decision, but communicating that to me lets me know we need to add that milestone.
And at the state level, they're talking about both.
Yes.
No, they are. I've seen it.
So,
And you don't have to go through the readoption or revision process. And if I may, if there's no other questions, in terms of the last point on the CEO report related to work items, I'm flattered that the Sendero resolution mentioned my name, but it respectfully should be struck, because the staff that just moved mountains to be able to make that happen.
Yes.
They're not here in the room, but I went out in the
Right.
hallway and congratulated them, because it was a huge effort. And I want to thank Ms. McDonald for also helping convene and track and move things along. It was that outreach staff, they were phenomenal under Kit's leadership, and Becky worked that and others. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Again, agenda item 9 was just an information item, no action is necessary. Agenda item 12 is the discussion of the next board meeting. The next Central Health Board of Managers meeting is scheduled on February 27, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. at Central Health Administrative Offices, 1111 East System Street, Austin, Texas, 78702. With that, do I hear a motion?
Move adjournment.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry about the length of the meeting.
you said February 19th, correct?
February